morning. I think we're getting ready to get started, so we'll call the meeting to order. Today, what we're working is bills we've been previously heard, and these bills are basically election bills. So the first one will be, let's work House Bill 2183. It's the first bill. And Jason, could you give us a briefing on that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, House Bill 2183 was a bill that would create a new section of law that would limit the governor, the executive branch, and the judicial branch from taking any action that would alter state election laws or procedures, including by executive order. And then it would require the Secretary of State to obtain the approval of the Legislative Coordinating Council before altering any election procedures pursuant to a consent decree or an agreement in any state or federal court. The law will go into effect on July 1st. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Seeing none. What is your wishes? Yes, Senator Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a couple of amendments.
Okay. Jason, do you want to give us a short explanation on the amendments?
Balloon number 1, Jason, if you would, please.
Yes, just a minute. Just sharing it with everybody on the screen here. Amendment number 1 on House Bill 2183 would change the word alter to modify throughout the bill. I would also add a new subsection D to clarify that nothing in this section would be construed to limit or otherwise restrict the judicial branch in the exercise of any of the powers granted to the judicial branch under Article 3 of the Constitution of the state of Kansas.
Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I would move my amendment.
Do we have a second? Been moved by Senator Hildebrand, seconded by Senator Peterson. Any discussion? Yes, Senator.
Just a quick question. So is there a time? So it says to be approved by the Legislative Coordinating Council. Is there a time that the improvement would have to be made?
Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is not in my amendment. My amendment is just adding that judicial review is, this will not interfere with judicial review.
And Senator Reichman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What's the difference between modify and altering? Thank you.
Senator Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I would probably like to defer to the reviser, Jason, on this.
Jason, could you give us the definitions?
Altering versus modifying might be simply a change in connotation of the verb being used. Altering might connote a more substantial change, whereas modifying, I think, means encompasses even small minor changes. It's really more, I think, a case of the reader's connotation of the verb than a real strong substantive change in the language.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries on amendment number 1. Do we have another amendment? We do. Senator Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Jason, this is balloon number 2.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, House Bill 2183, balloon number 2, would add a new subsection to the section. It's basically just a standard severability clause that we use in many different acts, so that if any provision of section 1 is held to be invalid, unconstitutional, and the other provisions can be given effect without that invalid provision, then the rest of the act is to be severed and remain in effect. It's a standard boilerplate severability clause.
Any questions of Jason? Seeing none? Senator Hildebrand,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will move my amendment.
do we have a second? We have a second by Senator Cluse. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We're back on the bill. We have a motion to move the bill. Oh, we're going to hold this bill for just a moment. The next one we'll work is House Bill 2339. Jason, can you give us 2339, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, House Bill 2339 was the bill expanding the crime of election tampering to include attempting to change, alter, destroy, or conceal any ballot cast by paper, election machine, or computer, manipulating any election machine or computer hardware, software, wireless transmission, or producing false voting totals.
Is there any questions? Seeing no questions, do we have any amendments on House Bill 2339? Yes. Senator Dietrich.
Okay. Yes, I do have an amendment, and I think Connie has it. I worked with revisers just to add one word, and the word is rather than knowing. Yes, knowingly. In line 16, remember how the House had crossed out intentionally? We added back knowingly so that an election worker, I can let Jason explain it, but so that an election worker isn't considered, for a crime if they're working in the election process. So this knowingly producing false vote totals rather than accidentally.
Are there any questions on the amendment? Do we have a motion on the amendment? You made the motion?
I would like to move my amendment, please.
A second. Motion been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We're back on the bill. So with that, is there any further amendments on House? Yes, Brenda made the motion on this. And we haven't voted on that yet. Okay. All in favor of the voting on the amendment? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, we'll hold on that one for just a moment. We will work House Bill 2332. Jason, could you give us a
Yes,
on
Mr.
that
Chairman. Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, House Bill 2332, if the committee recalls, was a bill dealing with applications for advanced voting ballots sent to registered voters. And so it places some restrictions on who can send those applications to registered voters and what the mailings have to look like. For starters, if an application is sent to a registered voter, then the envelope in which the application is sent has to have a clear label on the outside in 14-point font declaring the name of the organization that mailed it, the name of the president, chief executive officer, executive director of the organization, and their address, and also a clear statement that it is not a government mailing, but is coming from a private individual or organization. Those provisions would not apply to any official mailing from the Secretary of State or county election office or any agency that's designated under the HAVA federal law for advocating for voting access in the state. Violation would be a Class C non-person misdemeanor. In addition to that, there is another provision added to the statute that no person can mail or cause to be mailed an application for advanced voting ballot unless they are a resident of the state or otherwise domiciled in the state if they're a business entity. And so there's that prohibition as well. There is a $20 civil penalty for violation of that provision. The bill has a delayed effective date of January 1st of 2022. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? I understand that we have some amendments on this bill. Senator Peterson.
Yes, I have an amendment, House Bill 2332, balloon number 3.
We have the balloon number 3.
Drafted by Mike Hine. You recall during the discussion of this bill, Mr. Chair, we're talking about it. This adds that the only place that they can mail that application back to on the address of the envelope to mail it back in, or on the ballot if it folds up, it has to mail back to the appropriate election office. So they can't mail it to North Carolina or Missouri or.
Yes. Yeah, we had that situation last year, so yeah, that is what this prohibits. Any other questions on this amendment? Move your amendment.
Mr. Chair, no further questions. I move my amendment.
Do we have a second? Second, Senator Ps. All in favor? Oh, we're going to hold on. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, we're going to go ahead and work this bill. All in favor?
You need to pass my amendment.
Sure.
Aye.
We're going to pass it. You're on the amendment. We've on the amendment. We have a second. Senator Falscado. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We're back on the amendment, or back on the bill. Do we have another amendment? Senator Peterson.
Mr. Chairman, you know, it's conference committee time. We have several election bills here. I would like to add the contents of 2183 into 2232.
I think we have Senator Peterson. I think there was some additional amendments on that bill.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Thank you. Senator Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I do have another amendment. And Jason, I didn't realize there were multiple amendments on this. So you have this one, but it does not have a reference of a number on it.
It would
You
be
remember?
number 1. It's balloon number 1. But there is no balloon number on the front page of it. Yeah, I'll send it to the committee. The committee has it. I'm sorry.
Senator Hildebrand, do you want to explain your amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If it's all right, I'd let Jason explain the amendment.
Jason?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this balloon to 2332 would add the requirement that any application for advanced voting ballot that is sent to a registered voter must be the official application for advanced ballot by mail that is provided by the Secretary of State's office, and no portion of that application can be completed prior to mailing it to the registered voter.
Are there any questions? Yes, Senator Dietrich.
So part of the confusion last election cycle was like in Shawnee County, our Shawnee County election office had the voter registration for advanced voting application, but it said to be returned to the Shawnee County election office, not the Secretary of State's office. Does this say it has to be completed and sent to the Secretary of State's office, or that it just has to be the form that you download from the Secretary of State's office that you get from your election office? I know that sounds complicated, but that was part of the issue last election cycle.
Now, this is just on the application, that it is the official application from the Secretary of State's office. That's all this amendment says.
May I ask a question of the Secretary of State's office, just to make sure I'm clear? Would that be all right?
Katie, could you come up and explain? Thank you.
Do you understand, Katie, my question?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you respond to that?
Yes. So the Secretary of State's office, we do not handle ballot applications, voter registrations, anything like that. But it sounds like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Senator, that this would just require the form we make, it's the state of Kansas voter registration form or ballot application form to be used on such mailings. And that is not uncommon. We have a lot of entities who just simply copy it and then will edit it down to fit their respective mailer.
I just want to make sure that's what we're talking about. Thank you.
And that is correct. Thank you, Katie.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. And yes, Senator Peterson?
Thank you. This is just to make sure that everybody's entering in their correct information. They all have the standardized information so that it eliminates the confusion.
Thank you.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Senator Falscadell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So to the Senator Hildebrand, carrier of the amendment. So you're saying that no other information should be added on to the application?
Correct. So it would have to be the official advanced ballot application from the Secretary of State's office that they issue or send out, and it cannot be pre-filled out before it goes to the voter.
Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor? Excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself. We have a motion.
I make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to move my amendment.
We have a second. We have a second by Senator Reichman. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We're back on the bill. And do we have another amendment? Jason, I think we had another amendment on this one.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, did you want to offer balloon number 4?
Yes. If you could give it, Jason, if you could give us a briefing on this, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Balloon number 4 for House Bill 2332 would add a new section of election law. That new section appears there in the box, directing the Secretary of State to record and maintain both a residential and a mailing address for each registered voter. The residential address has to be an actual residence. The mailing address can be the same as the residential address, but must be recorded separately from the residential address. And then the secretary is directed to maintain such information in any electronic database of registered voter information that's maintained by the secretary and accessible by county election officers.
Are there any questions? Yes, Senator Ware.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering what the cost would be associated with this?
Jason, do you have an idea of what the cost would be?
I do not. I would have to defer to the Secretary of State's representative.
And as we do have a Secretary of State's office here, thank you for showing up today. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. Brian Caskey, Director of Elections. Well, we don't even have to change. If the requirement only is we collect mailing addresses on people currently registered to vote, and that duty is on the voter, then there's no cost to the Secretary of State or to the county election offices. We already collect mailing addresses voluntarily. It's on the voter registration form. It's in our voter registration database. So that information is already collected on a voluntary basis. So if the requirement is on the voter, no fiscal note. If the requirement makes an election official chase these down, then shooting from the hip, I do not have an accurate fiscal note on that effort.
Thank you.
You bet.
Senator Falscadeau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question would be for Brian Caskey, too. Hi. As I read it, you're saying you want the physical address and if there's a P.O. box also, or one or the other. That's kind of one question maybe for the carrier of the amendment. But my question to you, I'm concerned about homeless people that are in my area, Wichita. They go in at night to the Open Doors program, and they don't have a real physical address to use. And we allow people to have those P.O. boxes of a mailing address to get certain information. So does this X them out from getting to vote or to participate because they don't have a home or an apartment to use as their mailing address? They use the P.O. boxes. What do we do for that?
So this bill would not change that. To register to vote, you must have a physical location. If you are a person without a permanent residence, without a home, then we need the place where you sleep at night. And when you fill out the voter registration form, we note that. If it's a particular homeless shelter, if it's somewhere out in the environment, as long as we can identify the location, then we will accept that so that we can correct the correct ballot style. So this bill doesn't change that, in my opinion. We still will be able to accommodate that.
Senator Peterson.
My question is probably for Brian, too. This bill wouldn't change how you handle people that are under protective orders?
Nothing in what I've read on this would require any change on that. So there are persons who apply to register to vote and fill out another form that prevents the public release of their address information. Nothing that I've read in this amendment would affect that ability.
That's what I wanted to make sure of. Thank you.
Senator Reitman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess the carrier of an amendment, who's carrying is it?
I am.
Okay, thank you. So I guess my question is, why do we need it?
I think the difference is we need to make sure that people aren't just voting with the post office box. Make sure that we know where they were registered, when they registered, where they lived, and then where they get their mail. Their mail and their post office and their where they get their mail and where they live may be two different locations. Yes, Senator Falscadeau.
So, Mr. Chairman, still, just to be clear on what we're doing, so as I read it, the residential address of a registered voter shall correspond to a physical location where the registered voter resides. And this is the part that concerns me, and shall not be a post office box or other address that cannot be used as residency. So when Brian just said, I'm still concerned about, because I serve on the Kansas Legal Services Board in Wichita, and there are a lot of veterans that interact with and are at some of the homeless shelters there. Some of them, they might have a P.O. box, but they actually sleep on the sidewalk in front of Catholic Charities downtown Wichita. So I just don't, but they are legal citizens and they're registered to, I don't know, I'm just still confused with that.
I think
Thank
if
you.
Brian would come up, I think he'll give us an explanation on that again.
So, yes, Senator, that does happen. I think in some cases, every year we use a program called the National Change of Address Program, where we compare every registered voter with everyone who has an address change on file with the post office. We are required to do that under the National Voter Registration Act. It's a federal law and state law. So there are times where we will make that comparison, and we will, and by we, I mean county election officers will update the voter registration record to include the P.O. box because federal law requires us to do so. But to be registered to vote, you have to have a physical location for us to assign the correct ballot. You cannot register simply at a P.O. box. That would, when you sign the voter registration application, you're signing under penalty of perjury that this is my physical address. There are times where that gets changed because of this other law that we are required to follow, but we can accommodate exactly that situation.
Okay. And so if I understand, if they are living in a homeless shelter, that would be their residence at that time. Is that correct?
That is correct, and that would not, sometimes that does not include a city-style address, and so in the residence field in the voter registration database, it'll be left blank, but there will be a P.O. box in the mailing address, and then we have a notes field where they can notate that so that we have them allocated correctly.
Thank you. Senator Ware, did you have a question?
I'm still a little confused. It says, other address that cannot be used as a residence. Does under the 2nd Street Bridge, and is that an address? I mean, is that a residential it sounds like we're leaving people out here.
If someone puts on the voter registration application under the 2nd Street Bridge, that is sufficient information to register to vote if that's where the person resides. If that's where they sleep at night, if that's where they live, that's sufficient information in order for an election office to determine, yes, I can assign a person to that geographical location.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for that explanation. With that, I move this amendment. I don't have amendment number 4. I move the amendment number 4. And we do have a second. Senator Hildebrand, all in favor? Aye. Aye. And we are back on the bill. Do we have any additional amendments for this bill? Jason, I don't think we had any more. Is that correct for this bill?
The Resident Balloon Amendment 5, Mr. Chairman, I didn't know if you wanted to distribute it or not.
Jason, did we have amendment number 2? Did we do amendment number 2?
No, Mr. Chairman, we have not done amendment number 2.
Jason, we'll pass that amendment number 2 out, and could you give us an explanation of that, please?
Mr. Chairman, House Bill 2332, Balloon Amendment number 2, would add a new statute to the bill regarding recount of elections. This one, you can see in the attachment would have been 25-3107, which is our statute regarding recounts of elections. The primary language you will see on pages 5 and 6 of the attachment. This deals with recounts of electronic and electromechanical voting systems. A person can request a recount of a voting machine. The request must be in writing to the Secretary of State. It must be submitted not later than 5 p.m. of the second Friday following the election. The request can also include that the media storage devices and voting machines that were used together on the day of the election be operated together to generate the hard copies of the election results that were tabulated by the voting system on the day of election. And the person requesting the recount shall be permitted to be present during that recount and will receive a copy of the election results that are generated during such recount. Shall be conducted under the supervision of the county election officers at the direction of Secretary of State. The voting machine may be unsealed and opened by the county election officers if necessary to conduct the recount without first obtaining a court order to do so. And then finally, the county will bear the cost of any such recount requested for this purpose.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just on my quick review, I really think we should probably not work this amendment. It looks like there's some issues that it probably needs to be worked out before we deal with this one. I would just recommend we pass over this amendment.
Do we have a second on it? Second by Senator Reichman. Any further discussion? All in favor to pass over amendment number 2?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, amendment number 2 has been passed over. Okay, we have another amendment and we're back on the bill, Senate Bill 3332. This would be amendment number 5. And Jason, would you like to give us some briefing on amendment number 5, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Amendment number 5 would create a new section of law to be added to the bill. This new section would direct the Secretary of State to publish the total number of registered voters in each county and the total number of registered voters for each political party on the website of the Secretary of State. That would be done on a monthly basis. And also on the 20th day prior to any election, the Secretary of State is directed to publish the total number of registered voters in each voting precinct and also the total number of such registered voters who are affiliated with a political party, with each political party on the official website of the Secretary of State.
Is there any questions for Jason on this? Seeing none. Oh, excuse me, Senator Pescadero.
Jason, oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason, so this should be done on the 20th day prior to an election, to every election, the local election, state election, school board, every election?
Senator, the voter registration deadline is the 21st day prior to an election. And so this requirement is basically that the day after voter registration closes, the Secretary of State is to publish these registered voter numbers.
Okay.
Any other questions? Senator Ware.
Thank you so much. It's not really, my question isn't so much for Jason as just wondering why? What are we accomplishing? It's of actual benefit?
Jason, could you give us an explanation?
I have no privy as to the why, Mr. Chairman. This is simply what the amendment does.
Do we know whose amendment, who,
I think it was Representative Topiker, I think. And I don't see him in the room. As for why. So, okay, yes, Senator Reichman.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. I don't know the reason why neither, but in the last election, there were some counties that more people voted that were registered, and I don't know if that's referring to that or not. I have no idea. Thank you, Mr. Leader.
Thank you. So with this, what do we want to do with it? Yes, Senator Dietrich.
I guess my question would be, is there a fiscal note on this? Do you think it would, it's more work, but it probably just means extracting from a database is what I'm thinking. So may we ask
We may,
Secretary of State's office?
from the Secretary of State's office.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Katie Copal with the Secretary of State's office. I think the bigger issue is more at the county level. In the 2020 elections, one thing we did experience is it took a few days for counties to get caught up, just because of workload demands between the advanced by mail ballot applications and voter registration deadlines. It's something we're not opposed to do, but the numbers posted on the website may not be accurate because counties are still updating voter registration information. So it is something we did roll out a new website earlier this year, in our election statistics page, something that we continue to work on because we know it's something that we all want, you all want. And let me look back to Brian and make sure there's nothing else I forgot.
Okay, thank you.
From a fiscal perspective, there would be no charge because our system already produces reports at any point in time. So there would be no fiscal note. But from a legal aspect, Kansas law, when it comes to registering to vote, allows registrations to be accepted if they're postmarked on or before the 21st day. And so to produce a report the day after the deadline would be terribly inaccurate because counties receive tens of thousands of applications on the deadline that won't be actually added to the total until days after the 21st. In addition, there's another law that if the piece of paper coming in from the voter registration application does not have a postmark, we accept those up until 9 days prior to Election Day. Those are also added to the official voter registration tabulation, to the official voter registration numbers. So I completely understand needing that data the first day after the deadline, but these two other laws prevent counties from completing that work essentially until the week prior to General Election Day.
Senator Fausto.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure if this is for the carrier of the amendment or from Brian, so is this just listing the total number, or does it list the person's name?
My reading of this is just data, just the number of registered voters per county and per jurisdiction. That's the way that I read this when I just read it.
Senator Longbottom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know that I have any problem with the amendment, but I do recognize that it's highly unusual for a House member to bring an amendment to a Senate committee if there is no Senate member who's willing to sponsor that amendment, and I haven't heard that yet.
I am sponsoring that amendment.
Okay.
Thank you. I was, Representative Topiker was the one that asked for that. So maybe gave the wrong information there earlier. Thank you. So with that, yes, Senator Dietrich.
So knowing that we've got some complications that probably need to be addressed at the county level with the data and it being inaccurate, is this something we could pass over until we get more information? The concept is good. I just don't think it's going to do what we want it to do in its current form. Would that be an option?
Are you making a motion?
Yes, I would move that we pass this over until we can collect more information from the county level.
We have a second. Second. Senator Reichman, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So that amendment, we're back on the bill. Do we have, yes, Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know you're wanting to place some bills together and get ready to go to conference. I would move that we add the contents of House Bill 2183 as amended to House Bill 2332.
Senator, I will take that motion, but I think we probably should work 83 first and vote on it. I don't believe we voted on that. Is that correct with the amendments? That's correct. So well, let's take care.
Take the contents out of it and put it into 2232, then I don't have to work 2183.
We have not voted on the, I'm assuming we have not voted on the amendments that we added to 2183 first. I should have worked those first, perhaps. But
Mr. Chairman, we have worked the amendments and voted on all the amendments, and I would like to take the contents of 2183 as amended and place it into 2332.
Senator Longbine?
Mr. Chairman, I think there's a couple of ways to get to this path, and I think either one is fine. The only thing that I would point out is we have not passed out the three bills individually and then place. So what we're going to do is we're going to place three bills into one bill, and then we're going to pass that bill out favorably. The only danger in that is you are now voting in favor of all three of those bills instead of individually.
Okay. I thank you for that advice. And for these first one, I'm going to work all three of them individually, and then we'll pass them out and put them, we can then put them in there, if that's okay with everyone there. Okay. First one, House Bill 2183 as amended.
Chairman, I would move that we pass out we pass out favorably for passage House Bill 2183 as amended.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Do you want to be recorded? Senator, second. And Senator Ware would like to be recorded. Now we're working on House Bill 2339. Do I have a motion to approve and to pass out favorably with amendment? Senator Longbine, do I have a second? Second, Senator Hildebrand. Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Now we'll go to House Bill 2332 with amendment. Senator Hildebrand?
Mr. Chairman, I think this is the point where we want to stop and add stuff in, since that's the one we're going to add into. I could be wrong, but I believe this would be the proper time for Senator Peterson's motion.
Okay. Senator Peterson.
I move we take the contents of 2183 as amended and insert it into 2332.
Do I have a second? Motion been made and seconded by Senator Hildebrand. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now, do we have, what we have today, if I understand it, is we've taken House Bill 2183 into House Bill 2332. Okay?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to add the contents of House Bill 2339 as amended into House Bill 2332.
We have a second. Senator Longbine, second, to add the contents of House Bill 2339 into House Bill 2332. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. Now, since we have that now, do we now want to work House Bill 2332 as amended?
I move we pass House Bill 2332, recommended out favorably as amended.
Second? Do I have a second? Second by Senator Longbine. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much for cleaning up that work. I appreciate that. Now we're on to, and by the way, lunch will be provided. I appreciate your help here. We're going to be working on Senate Bill 11. And Jason, could you give us a little briefing on Senate Bill 11?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 11 was the bill regarding advanced voting ballots that prohibits any person from backdating or otherwise altering the postmark or the date of mailing on an advanced voting ballot that is returned to a county election officer. Violation of that would be a level 9 non-person felony.
Thank you very much for that. Do we have an amendment on Senate Bill 11? Senator Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Jason, this is balloon number 1.
Pass that one out. Give us a briefing on balloon number 1, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, balloon number 1 to Senate Bill 11 is an amendment to 25-1123 that would be added to the bill. This would reduce the lead time for submitting advanced voting ballots from 20 days prior to the election to 10 days prior to the election.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Senator Falscadell.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just trying to get my head around all of this. So I just left the Elections Committee, and then so I'm hearing some things that we have done in that committee, and then it sounds like now we're undoing them in the Fed and State Committee, and I'm just like, and then tomorrow we're working all day on election bills, but I just feel like I'm in one long election committees in the legislature this session. And, but so my question then for Jason, because usually it's another reviser, Jill Shelley, that works on the election bills. But Jason Long, do you know, didn't we just address this issue in legislation in the former Ethics and Elections Committee, which is now Transparency and Ethics? Didn't we just do all of this, what this amendment, or so is this making it, giving us more time to submit or advance ballots, or taking time away? Because we just passed this legislation in the Elections Committee. So are we just repealing what we've already done? Please clarify for me. Because I'm getting everything, because we're doing the election bills in the committee I just left, and now we're doing, please help me.
Yes, Senator. I also am the primary reviser for the Senate Committee on Transparency and Ethics, and that committee has not dealt with election bills of this nature, dealing with election procedures and election deadlines this session. Its primary work has been with the Secretary of State's office's more administrative duties rather than running elections. This statute has not been taken up, I recall, by that committee this session. They may have worked
Mr.
on this
Chairman,
statute in
Jason,
a prior session. Yes.
Yes, that's what I'm saying in the
Okay.
prior session.
Yes,
not
yes. I
this
think in prior
session.
sessions, the Committee on Transparency and Ethics, which was formerly called the Committee on Ethics and Elections, did take up bills such as this dealing with election law. That has not been the case this session. This particular amendment that is being offered would shorten the time period for submitting an advance voting ballot from 20 days prior to the election down to 10 days prior to the election.
Senator Ware.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I have serious concerns about this, especially, I mean, with the mail delivery being questionable, cutting half the time out, and we are likely to consider today that we can't even have people help deliver these, or that's seriously curtailed. This absolutely looks like voter suppression to me. It really, I don't understand what we'd be gaining by shrinking that time. Maybe if there's a really good reason to offset that, I'd like to hear it.
Senator Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just that 10 days is, when you go to vote, you have to vote one day. You have plenty of days for 10 days for advance ballots. That's seems like a lot of time to me. So that's why I'm introducing this amendment.
I'm going to get a clarification here, so I'm going to turn this over to Senator Hildebrand for just a moment.
Would someone from the Secretary of State's office like to answer a question for Senator Dietrich?
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I was thinking that they might be able to help. So I'm thinking of our 4 largest counties, and those election officials are appointed by the Secretary of State's office, and they also have to handle a huge volume. So I'm thinking of our county election offices, and either you or maybe Brian or somebody can help me with this. Do you think that will place an undue burden if we shorten the window for advance ballots for them to be able to do their work? I just know how many they got this last time, and they start working with those as soon as they receive them. But if you shorten that window, and they're also getting ready to, gear up for the polling places in our largest counties, I'm just concerned it may be too much for them.
Sure. I guess I'll offer some generic remarks, and then I'll let Brian kind of dive into the data that you are inquiring about. This is a policy position for you guys. It's whether it's 20 days, 10 days, 30 days, it's up for you guys. We did find in the 2020 elections, we did see historical numbers of advanced by mail ballots, but we felt like our system did respond very nicely because our local election officials, they're awesome. They did the brunt of the work, and they were able to shift resources around to meet the changes in voter preferences we saw in 2020. But as for those 4 big counties, if it's okay, Mr. Chair, I would like to turn it over to Brian.
Sure. Thank you, Katie. Brian?
Thank you, Senator Hildebrand and Senator Dietrich. The Secretary of State's office does not have a position on the difference between 20 days and 10 days. And to be honest, I've given it about 30 seconds of thought. Yes, there would be fewer days, and you would have 10 fewer days to do the work. Does that mean the work couldn't be done? I can't say that. I would want to talk to all 4 of them, and ultimately, we do not have a position on this, and so I know that we will do whatever the law requires to the best of our ability. So that's all I can add to that currently.
Senator Reichman.
Thank you very much, Acting Chair, I guess. And so if I understand, we're talking about on this amendment, as far as voting early, they used to have up to 20 days and knock it down to 10. So they have 10 days before election when they put their vote in by mail. Is this what this amendment does?
My very quick reading of this, it would change the date from when ballots go out in the mail from 20 days to 10 days prior to the election. Current law allows counties to have in-person voting beginning 20 days. It mandates it at 7. And so I believe that the optional period would change from the 20 days to 10 days, and every county would still must have in-person voting open 7 days prior. So I believe that's what it says in my initial reading.
Okay, so I guess my question is to the carrier of the amendment, is it the reason is to try to cut down voter fraud or what? I mean, I'm just not quite sure where we're going for this. I just need some help. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Reichman. No, voter fraud is not to cut down on it. It's just to cut down on the time that we are allowing extra voting or additional, the advanced ballots or in-person advanced voting. If you go to the polls on election day, you have 12 hours to vote. That's all you have. So the majority of people go on election day. Expanding the other opportunities to go in and vote, this would just cut that down to 10 days. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I just have a question if I'm going to vote for it or not. Thank you.
Senator Foscato.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. So again, I've served on the election committee since 2003 in the House and in the Senate. I recall this debate in the former Ethics and Elections Committee here in the Senate, and we compromised, that committee did, on this 20-day period because, Mr. Vice Chairman, I don't know if you realize, but so here in Shawnee County, when they mail out advance ballots, they actually mail out a stamped envelope. Senator Vicki Smith had that amendment put on some years ago. Now she's insurance commissioner. So those individuals here in Shawnee County, they can return it promptly because they've got the mail-in postage on their return envelope. In Cedric County, they don't. And as I shared, a lot of elderly people, they have hard times getting out just to get the stamp to return. In Kansas City, Wyandotte, they don't even have early voting. We do in Cedric County. We are not in sync throughout the state of Kansas on how we even do this. And so we understand too, and I know for a fact that if I mail a letter here in Topeka, it goes clear to Kansas City before it can get back to Wichita. And so I just think that we need all of that mailing information. I think Brian and Kate, we've talked about this stuff before. So Mr. Chair, my question is for Brian again. You are privy to understanding because we talked about the mail, how it's in the rural areas, how it doesn't get back to the post office in time. And I don't know, with life as it is now, with the post office and COVID and things of that nature. But Brian, if you could please share with us of what you shared in the previous Ethics and Elections Committee as it relates to the postal system in rural areas versus our urban areas. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Brian, would you go ahead?
Thank you. Senator Foscato, thank you. I'd like to add to that because the Census Bureau, sorry, there's been too many calls this week. The U.S. Postal Service unveiled a new 10-year plan this week as it relates to how they're funding the U.S. Postal Service. That plan will impact the delivery of election mail. And quite frankly, they were very light on details, but they have basically outlined the things that they're going to do moving forward in the next 10 years. Some of those things will that they have shared with us is there will be an increase in first-class mail. They are not telling us when that increase will happen or how much, but that is coming. In addition, the current standard for the delivery of first-class mail is 2 to 5 business days. That's their current standard. They are not changing that standard moving forward. So the official policy of the U.S. Postal Service is every first-class piece of mail, which is how ballots are mailed, will be delivered in 2 to 5 days. They are changing how they deliver mail across the country because there are certain areas where truck and train is more efficient than plane, and so they are modifying their delivery routes to meet the 2 to 5 business day standard. They are also talking about changing the locations of their distribution centers. You are correct, and I believe this is still the case. I'm not aware of a distribution center located within the boundaries of Kansas. There used to be a couple, even one here in Topeka, but those have moved across state lines. They are thinking of moving them again, and I have no details. So essentially, what I'm up here to say is they're going to change things, and what I know now is not going to be true moving forward. Obviously, we'll share with whatever we know, but it's too early for me to talk about what's next with the U.S. Postal Service.
Okay, Senator Reichman and then Senator Hildebrand.
Thank you very much. Yes, we do have a problem in Liberal, Kansas. If we mail it, let's say Meade, which is where I'm from, it's like 39 miles. It goes to Wichita, Kansas City, whatever. But there it goes all the way down to Texas. And so it can take several, sometimes longer than a week before they get it. Why they go that way, I don't know. And there is a lot of problems. And I don't think it will affect this bill because the ones in Liberal, when they send them out, Liberal it still goes on to Texas, but comes right back. It doesn't take the runaround through Kansas. But it's still a concern for me how the post office works. Thank you.
Senator Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Brian, since you're up here, just to clarify, Senator from Sedgwick had mentioned that Wyandotte County doesn't allow advance voting, but I thought it was statutorily, unless I misunderstood her comment, statutorily they have to allow 7 days, don't they? Or did I misunderstand a previous comment that you had made?
I was simply going to ask the Senator from Sedgwick to clarify that because my understanding of the law and what happened in 2020 is, yes, Wyandotte County did offer in-person advance voting at least 7 days. And I have how many days back at my office. I don't have Wyandotte County memorized, but they absolutely offered in-person voting at least 1 week prior to Election Day, if not more.
Thank you, Brian. So I was speaking with a senator that represents that area and was sharing that they don't always have early in-person voting, but they did this time prior to the election. So, yeah, but my point is that we do it a little differently in each county, is my understanding. But Mr. Chairman, now that you're back, I don't know if this is in order, but if the senator, the carrier of the amendment, would compromise and go to 15 days. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I would, if that is a substitute motion, I would accept that.
Substitute motion is in order. Do we have a second? We have a second by Senator Cluse. All in favor for the substitute motion, 15 days? Aye. Aye. Opposed? You want to be recorded? Okay. Okay. Yes, Senator Cluse.
This is apart from there. Someone's listening in and said we're not on audio anymore. Is that right? Since we're going
What was the question?
past time. We went past time. I have someone listening in and they just text me and said it's been down.
Still on audio, I can hear it.
Yeah, they're just on audio feed. It's back on. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we are on the motion made and seconded. All in favor? We did that already. So now we're back on the bill. Yes, Senator Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Jason, this will be balloon number 2 amendment.
Could you give us a briefing on the amendment number 2 as we pass it out?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Senate Bill 11, balloon number 2. This is a balloon amendment to add an amendment to 25-1124 regarding advanced voting ballots. This would require that that there be a signature match, that the county election officer, in accepting the advanced voting ballot, would verify the signature of the person on the advanced voting ballot envelope matches the signature that the election officer has on file in their voter registration records. There is an exception for the voter with a disability that prevents the voter from signing the ballot, and signature verification may occur by electronic device or by human inspection. And in the event the signature on the envelope does not match the signature that is on file with the voter registration records, then the ballot is not to be counted.
Thank you. Senator Ware.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my question, Jason, is what's the definition of match when it applies to signatures?
There is no statutory definition for a match, and so it would fall to common usage and be up to the discretion of the county election officer to verify that these signatures are within a reasonable person standard, a match.
If I may make a
Yes.
comment, when we identify people by a number, that's clear and absolute. But signatures vary constantly depending on 1,000 factors because we're people. I have a lot of trouble with this. It wouldn't be an identifying, I mean, some would be clear, but many would be nebulous. And we're not about nebulous up here.
Yep. Senator Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I don't know if this will alleviate the concern from the good senator from Sedgwick County, but under this, the election officer still would contact that person that signed it, and they could verify it because the senator is correct. Over time, we do change our signatures. If you looked at my signature 5 years ago compared to today, it's totally different. But they would contact that individual voter and ask, hey, is this your signature? And if they verified it, then it would still count.
Okay. Senator Dietrich.
I feel like I'm the advocate for our county election officers today. So for those of us who live in large counties, I'm kind of hesitant about some of these bills only because the county election officers haven't had a chance to weigh in, and I don't know what the impact is going to be on their operations. And they're doing such a great job, and they've done a great job for us in our 4 largest counties in this last election cycle. So we've got Johnson, Shawnee, which is me, Douglas, and Wyandotte. And I just really worry about how will this impact them? And I just don't know if we've had that discussion with them or how we can learn that, yes, we can do this, not a problem, or, oh my gosh, we may have to add a couple staff, which I just don't know. Thank you.
Senator Peterson, spouse to go, and
It
then
would help, but I do understand this amendment. Tell me if it doesn't. It does allow electronic signature verification through the machines that some of our larger counties use, does it? I believe I'm reading that in the bottom of that balloon that Yeah, sorry, verification may occur by electronic device or by human inspection. Never mind, got my question.
Senator Fausto, then Senator Reichman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I know this past election in Cedar County, my election commissioner actually called me and said, if you know anybody who's willing to work the polls, let me know. Put that information out there. A lot of the individuals that worked there didn't come back because of COVID, and so they were highly understaffed. And so I do know that I introduced a bill that passed into law that if your signature is missing on the outside of the envelope, that our election commissioners would contact you, giving you an opportunity to sign your signature so your vote counted. And I don't know, maybe they could do this then, but again, just for the record, I think I shared with this committee that years ago I fell and broke my wrist, and my signature changes every time I write it. So I mean, it's, and even if, so I wanted to ask the carrier of the amendment, so when Senator Hildebrand, oh, and just for the record, the other comment from Senator Hildebrand, the senator from Cedric County, that was Senator Mary Ware, not me. And so, but my question to the carrier of the amendment, when you responded to Senator Mary Ware saying that they would just call and see if this is your signature, how would they verify that over the phone? Are we asking for another affidavit? I just want to make this fair. I want people to do the right thing and be who they say they are, signing, but I don't want it to make it harder to vote.
Senator Hildebrand?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the senator from Sedgwick, Senator Foscato, for the question. And I apologize to the senator from Sedgwick, Senator Ware, for not, I forgot we had two, well, actually we have three senators from Sedgwick County on the committee. I forget. So when you're the lone senator from 3 or 4 counties, it's easy to forget that. So my apologies up front. But to answer your question, all it is all they have to do is, my understanding and the intent of it is if they see the signature doesn't match, they would get on the phone, just like they would verifying any other information, call the the elector, the person that was elected or voter, and ask about, are you the one that signed this ballot? And they would verify that they were the one that signed the ballot, and that would be the verification that they would require.
Any further questions on amendment? Yes, Senator Ware?
I guess one little question about that scenario that you just ran down. Do we always have phone numbers for the voters?
Senator Hildebrand?
That's on their voter registration card, or when they vote, or register to vote, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes, Senator Reichman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. During this last election, when I was watching, there was some states that people were just marking and they were not checking the ballots. There was some concern, so I like this amendment for another check. I want people voting. I just don't want illegal voting. I think everybody here is in the same position. And if you have on advanced voting, you're supposed to sign the outside, and then you have something to match there. And some of them were saying, well, we're not going to do that. And so I think that's important for everyone to know that we have voting integrity. I think everybody was for that. So, and then you have a way, if they forgot to sign it, to check with them and whatever. So I'll be in support of this amendment. Thank you.
Senator Dietrich?
Back to the piece of the amendment that Senator Peterson called our attention to, where you can have electronic verification. And honestly, I don't know, do we have that now? Do our election offices have that now?
The
Somebody
Secretary of
answer.
State's office is shaking her head, yes.
Yes, okay, good, thank you.
Seeing no further questions, we're back on the amendment. Do I have a motion to? Yes, Senator Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move my amendment.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second? Second by Senator Reichman. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We'll do a little housekeeping here for just a moment. I want to apologize to the committee. The first two motions we made up on 281 and 293, the contents were moved individually into House Bill 2332, and it's redundant to move more bills individually into the contents of 2183. And it can be, so it was my fault. I do believe we have a correction with that. And so if I would ask Senator Longbine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move that we reconsider our actions, I believe, on House Bill 2332.
We reconsider our the motion. Right. Yeah, the motion to according to the note I have from Jason, we would need a motion to reconsider the action on House Bill 2183 to pass out favorably as amended. So we're reconsidering that motion. We've already, if you'd made that motion.
We'll make that motion. I think we're going a long way around, but that's all right.
Second. Motion been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. The second motion necessary would be, so if I could have someone make a motion to reconsider the action on House Bill 2339 to pass out favorably. Motion been made by Senator Longbine. Do we have a second? Second by Senator Hildebrand. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Thank you very much. We'll correct it that there. And we did.
Chairman, you need to fix it now.
The fix. We put contents. Right. And I'm going to ask Jason if that is correct.
Mr. Chairman, with the motions to reconsider being adopted, both House Bill 2183 and House Bill 2339 are back in the committee. They have not been moved favorably out of committee. The contents of both bills as amended were inserted into House Bill 2332, and that bill, House Bill 2332, as amended, was moved favorably out of committee on motion of Senator Peterson. And so at this point, that is the only bill, House Bill 2332, that has been moved out of committee, and you still have House Bill 2183 and House Bill 2339 in committee and available to work at any time at the committee's discretion.
Thank you very much for that explanation and for your assistance on this matter. So, yes, Senator Fauskado.
So, and I may be asking ahead, maybe you're going to say it now, but so just for clarification, we moved 2183 and 2339 into 2332?
Yes, passed it out. So I think that corrects the situation that we had. And now we did work number 11. Okay, so we're back on Senate Bill 11. Okay, well, we're going to tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take a little recess. Lunch has been provided. Thank you all for your work this morning. We will be working after lunch for a few minutes, but your lunch is right outside the door, and we'll break for lunch. We'll go. I will entertain a motion to recess for lunch. till 12:30. Okay. Motion been made and seconded. All in favor, get up and walk out, I guess. Thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and get started. It's 12:30. We have a little bit of work left to finish. I do want to mention that lunch was provided by Scott Snyder. Appreciate that. We have worked down through Senate Bill 11, and so we're going to work Senate Bill 292. And on Senate Bill 292, I think that we have some amendments on Senate Bill 292. Senator Peterson, do you have the minutes? I know you're eating, so if you'll pass those out, please. Jason, could you give us a briefing on 292, please?
Mr. Chairman, I can brief the underlying bill. I'm not sure what amendment was just passed out by the secretary.
Okay, could you give us on the amendment?
I can't see that, Connie. Is there a balloon number on there or not? If there's no number on it, then I know which one you're talking about.
No number, it just says
no number,
292 on top.
Gotcha. Senate Bill 292 was the bill the committee recently heard that prohibits persons from transmitting or delivering an advance voting ballot on behalf of another person unless there is a sworn statement signed by that person and the person who is asking for it to be delivered for them. It also prohibits a person from delivering more than 5 advance voting ballots on behalf of other voters. The balloon that was just passed out would further prohibit a candidate for office from assisting in the marking of an advance voting ballot or signing an advance voting ballot under that statute, which is 25-1124. That would be a Class C misdemeanor. Further, the balloon would amend the crime of electioneering to prohibit candidates from office from touching or handling any ballot during the voting process, distributing ballots, or hindering or obstructing any voter or any election worker. Those provisions, I will point out, that would be added by the balloon would not apply to the Secretary of State or any election official or county election office when they're engaged in the performance of their duties.
Thank you for that. Any questions? Yes, Senator Reichman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is this more of a preventive thing in Kansas, or were we having some violations of that in the last election? Thank you.
Jason, if not, we can ask the Secretary of State's office.
I was going to say, Mr. Chairman, I would defer to the Secretary of State's office as to whether or not such conduct was being carried out in the last election.
Katie, thank you for being here again.
Of course, Mr. Chairman, Katie Copal with the Secretary of State's office. We did not experience any widespread systematic issues in 2020. However, we do acknowledge that in some local jurisdictions, there may have been complaints that were investigated or looked into, I should say, at the local level.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Yes, Senator Dietrich.
I'm so sorry. I'm probably reading too much into this. Can you define ballots? When it says distributing ballots or counting ballots. Of course, we wouldn't be counting ballots because you have to be in the election office to do that. But what's distributing ballots? How would you even do that? Can you define that for me, Jason?
Oh, yes, Senator, ballots is an understood term in the election law. It's the actual ballot that the voter has cast. And so you can't distribute those ballots or count those ballots. It basically prevents the candidate from office from actually physically handling any ballot cast by a voter.
Oh, so I see what you're saying. The actual ballot that's been cast.
Yes.
Got it.
Any further discussion? Senator Peterson, would you like to have a second? Senator Longbottom.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just trying to make sure that we're not getting in trouble here. We don't have anybody from the minority party here.
Thank you very much. We'll have to call.
I think it would be a good idea to have one of them in the room.
They're right next to us. Thank you very much. We will hold on that, but we could have an explanation on the Second Amendment on this. And I brought that amendment. Jason, could you give us a briefing on that one?
Yes, it's number 2, Connie. The Second Amendment on Senate Bill 292, balloon number 2, would add a provision to the new section 1 under the bill to prevent a candidate for office from knowingly transmitting or delivering any advance voting ballot on behalf of any person except an immediate family member of such candidate.
Are there any questions on this amendment? It's coming. Yes. Senator Dietrich.
I'm not sure if this is a question for the reviser, but the carrier maybe, has this been an issue? Has this been an issue during election time? I don't know that.
I think that the question is, if it hasn't been an issue, we just don't want it to become one. Yes. Are there any other discussions? Okay, yes, Senator Faust-Godot.
So I just want clarification, and I don't know if Jason's still online there. So I think at one point I heard the number 5. What does that relate to? Only 5 people could deliver?
Yes, Senator, the underlying bill, Senate Bill 292, would restrict a person from delivering no more than 5 advanced voting ballots on behalf of other voters. That's in lines 27 and 28 of Senate Bill 292.
Okay, thank you, Jason, Mr. Chairman. So, and then this number 2 amendment is limiting to just family members?
Yes. Yes, that's correct. On this one.
And so my question, Mr. Chairman, or the carrier of the amendment, or Jason, or anybody out there who wants to respond. So what if the individuals does not have any immediate family members still living or living in their county or their state, or what would that person do? Because
Senator Peterson?
This amendment is just for no candidate shall knowingly transmit or deliver unless it's for your family.
let's see if I'm gonna ponder on this one. That I'm half and half. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Peterson.
So I make a motion, yes, pardon me, Senator Ware.
Thank you so much. Every time we restrict voting, it becomes another little bite of voter suppression. If we are held to a very high standard for elections as candidates, this is, well, it's just another solution in search of a problem. Thanks.
Okay. Any further questions? I move my amendment number 2. Do I have a second? I have a second by Senator Reichman. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We're back on amendment number well, there's no number on it, but number 1, and that was offered just a moment ago. Senator Hildebrand, do you want to move, or is it Senator Peterson, excuse me?
This amendment also says no person who is a candidate, so the candidate can't help the person mark the ballot.
Okay. Any further discussion? Senator Falscadell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm the candidate. And so if I, as a state senator and a precinct committee woman, and just a helper of, I ran for office to help people with disabilities and senior citizens. And what I found was that some of them, you know, their eye vision or just maybe not being literate, even you can help, a poll worker can help a person at the poll read, because there are still some people that don't read well. So you're just saying, what do you mean exactly? So I couldn't knowingly help old lady Miss Smith down the street, just a question she may have, because people do call me for all kind of.
She can call and ask you, Mr. Chair. You cannot help her mark the ballot or sign the ballot as a candidate. So the candidates can't be the ones filling them out.
So, Mr. Chairman, but we could, Senator Peterson, so those who help people with disabilities, because we already have that in law where you can help a person and then you sign your signature and theirs, and that's all. And there's already a form that kind of affidavit, so that can still happen. Just the candidate
My understanding that
cannot.
the candidate cannot mark the ballot or assist them in signing the advance ballot.
Oh, well, I don't do that anyway, so.
I wouldn't think so.
Okay, moving forward. Any further discussion? Would you move
Move the amendment.
Do we have a second? Second by Senator Longbine. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to Senate Bill 293. Senator Longbine, I think you had a concern or a amendment on this one?
I do, Mr. Chairman. I do have an amendment. If we can
That's
get it passed out. It is number.
Mr. Chair, I think there was a technical amendment for this one also.
Yes, there's a technical amendment for that, and then we'll get this one first, and we'll get the technical amendment.
This one's not mine.
Got another, there's another amendment.
I'll keep it there.
We're gonna work the next amendment first.
Chairman, I think I can
Would you go ahead
can
and,
explain this, and maybe
this one
if
while we're
I
handing
don't
them
get
out.
this right, Jason can chime in.
okay.
The underlying bill prohibits any money being accepted by election officials. And I think that is certainly a needed case for those 4 counties where we have the election officer. I think the unintended consequence of this bill is we have 101 county clerks that are elected. And as I read the bill originally, that would prohibit them from collecting campaign contributions to run their election. I don't think that was the intent of the bill, so I'm just specifying county clerks could receive campaign contributions for a candidate for the office of county clerk.
Any questions? You may move your amendment.
Move my amendment.
Do I have a second? Motion been seconded by Senator Peterson. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. That amendment carries, excuse me. Now, do we have a second amendment that is a technical amendment? And that would be balloon number 1. Is that right, Jason?
It's balloon number 3, Mr. Chairman. This is
Okay.
technical.
You give us a technical amendment, Jason?
Yes, balloon number 3 on Senate Bill 293. I noted this in the hearing on this bill. In line 23, there's a reference to KSA 25-608, which relates to sales of ballots. There has been a subsequent later in time statute enacted that supersedes KSA 25-608. And so this technical amendment would strike that reference in lines 22 and 23 and would just simply repeal 25-608 since it has been superseded by another statute.
Any questions for Jason? I move this amendment. Second by Senator Longbottom. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Any same sign? Motion carries. Are there any further amendments on this bill?
Mr. Chair, you handed out a balloon 1. It's not my amendment, but.
Yes. Jason, do we know about the first, number 2? Excuse me, 1.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there is a balloon number 1 on Senate Bill 293. As you can see on the balloon, it's been passed out. Language in line 16 would be stricken or any other thing of value. So that the limitation, the prohibition on accepting contributions would be just money. Other things of value such as volunteer lunches, volunteer service could still be provided to the election official because that would not be in the form of money being provided to the election official.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, I'll move this amendment. I have a second. Seconded by Senator Longbottom. All in favor? Opposed? Motion, or the amendment carries. Okay. At that time, Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since we have 2183 back in our committee again, since we reconsidered our actions, I would like to make a motion to remove the contents of 2183 and insert Senate Bill 11 as amended into 2183.
Are there any questions? We have a second by Senator Hildebrand. Yes. Any discussion? Seeing none? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. On number 11, Senator Peterson?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to insert Senate Bill 35, since it probably won't make it through the process, and let me put it also into 2183.
Do I have a second? Second. Are there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Senator Hildebrand. Senator Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We still have 292 and 293 out there, so I would make a motion that we insert Senate Bill 292 as amended into House Bill 2183.
Do we have a second? Second by Senator Peterson. Any discussion? Yes.
That is correct.
That is correct.
There
We're
will
trying to put it
probably
in a
be a
House bill
motion.
so we can get it into conference.
Putting the contents into a House bill,
You have to do.
We pass it to the floor. It's not in our committee. It will pass out.
So, Mr. Chair, I'm just saying we haven't voted on it. That's all I'm saying.
that was my mistake this morning, and so we're trying to,
So we don't need to vote
don't
on it?
need to vote on
Okay.
that.
You will vote on it.
You'll vote on here shortly.
Eventually, okay.
Thank you.
Discussion on the motion.
Yes, discussion on the motion.
Senator Hildebrand referenced 292 and 293, but I think he only moved 292. If he wanted to save a step, he could put that 293 in there, and I wouldn't object.
I would like to save that step and amend my motion to add 292 and 293 as amended into House Bill 2183.
Okay, do we have a second on that motion? Second by Senator Longbine to insert Senate Bill 292 and 293 into 2183. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. And do you have another, Senator Hildebrand?
I do, Mr. Chairman. And now I would make a motion that we pass out House Bill 2183 as Senate substitute for House Bill 2183 favorably for passage.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Yes, Senator Faust-Cadeau.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. What happened to 35?
35 is in 20, we put it in a couple, we put that into 2183. So any further discussion? We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No? Would you like to be recorded? Yes. Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, I'll make the motion that we remove the contents of House Bill 2339 and insert some new language. And do you happen to have some new language that we could pass out?
2339. Going to put some new language into 2339. Going to be empty.
This is the language for 2339. Did you pick that up a while ago from Jason? That's what we're looking for. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for passing that out. Jason, could you give us a briefing on the new language?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, what has been passed out is a proposed Senate substitute for House Bill 2339. This language would take the place of the contents of 2339 under the motion made. This would amend a statute regarding advanced voting ballots and when they are to be received by the county election office. The deadline would be amended from the last mail delivery on the third day following election. Under this amendment, advanced voting ballots must be received by the county election officer by 7 p.m. on the day of election. And then the language allowing the Secretary of State to provide additional time for submission of those ballots is being stricken. And there's language that in no case shall an elected or appointed official or a court change the deadline.
Okay, we have several questions. Hildebrand?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason, you said 7 p.m., but the handout says 5 p.m.
I was hoping that the updated version of this that I sent to the committee assistant had been copied for distribution to the committee. It should say 7 p.m. on the day of the election is the official version.
The official version is 7 p.m., and so we can strike that 5 p.m., is that correct?
My understanding of the motion is that the language should say 7 p.m. on the day of the election, down there towards the bottom of the first page.
Okay. And I think that's your question. Is there any further discussion? Yes, Senator Longbine.
Mr. Chairman, is this language the same as any bill that we've had? Is this all new language?
This is new language coming from the House bill.
So my concern, I guess, that I would raise is that this language is going to solely be in 2339.
That is correct.
And so my concern is that that is the only language in that bill, and we have not had a hearing on it.
We can have a hearing right now.
My concern, I mean, if you have a base bill that you've had a hearing on and this is an amendment to that, then I think that's proper. But when this is the only language in the bill and you've not had a hearing on it, I think you could be in slippery slope there.
Any further discussion? Questions? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I don't know who the question would be for, but this language in blue, underlined, so as I read it, that means, so if it's another flood or in the ballots or the mail or whatever gets lost, or, I mean, no fault of the voter returning, so no one could make the, let's see, where the Secretary of the State shall adopt some rules, but so just clarify exactly what that sentence in blue means, Jason or Mr. Senator Peterson. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, it's yours.
Yes, thank you. The way the language reads, in no case shall an elected or appointed official or a court change the 7 p.m. deadline. That's what that means. I think, yes, Senator Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I might refer back to the Secretary of State's office, but we had a discussion earlier about this. There is another statute that deals specifically with natural disasters and things like that. So this, the way I am reading this amendment, it would not affect that statute. And looks like Katie can come up and clarify that.
I will do my best. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Katie Copal, Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, the senator is correct. There are two statutes. One allows the secretary to extend the deadline in the event it were to be quote unquote impossible to distribute. I believe we spoke about that yesterday, and the intent, if you recall, was the Wilson County situation where it was surrounded by floodwaters. There is another statute in law that is quite vague. Neither have ever been used. So yes, there are two separate statutes.
Thank you. Senator Pascal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Katie, in what you just said, and remember I shared with you that there was a whole a duplex, condos that burnt down on the corner of 21st and Hillside near Wichita State in my district. And so what do we do in a case like that where their mail came and was rerouted and no fault of their own, the entire complex burnt down? I mean, you know, so we've got to have some leeway too. And I also asked you to help me decide if we wanted to have the landlord, the owner of those complexes or apartment buildings, whereas they would notify the Secretary of State's office that an entire voting population in my district, I mean, all that mail came back to me, and then I tried to reroute it back, and those people didn't get to vote. And so we've got to have something in place for that. And then I also want to ask you, is there somewhere I can offer an amendment so that we can say a landlord of a big complex of over, I believe there was like almost 300 people that lived there, and the complex burned. I mean, don't we want to help that? Anyway, those are two lingering questions, but what do we have in place for that?
Mr. Vice Chair, if I may.
Please, Katie.
Thank you. In the situation with the landlord, and I might have Clay come up here real quick to talk about what legal remedies might be available in statute, but we would think that those individuals, they would still probably have either a utility bill or a driver's license or something identifying them, even though the facility itself is no longer in existence because of the fire. There could, the documentation could match. Now, whether or not they got their mail, yes, that's a good question, but I will, Clay, can you come?
Mr. Vice Chairman, my question, Katie, was, thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. My question was, so who, if we're taking that power away from everybody, and you're saying that there's two places within law that allows the Secretary of State to make some adjustments. I just want to know what they are and how we would handle that if we're taking, I mean, people have to have some option to deliver or to get their vote in. Thank you.
Katie, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Senator, thank you for the clarification. I stumbled on the previous, so let me take a step back. Neither one of those statutes have been used by a Secretary of State since they have been in statute. So the conditions, not sure when it would apply, and that's why I have Clay coming up here, because one is very vague, to the point where we're not necessarily comfortable with how vague it is because it does leave so much leeway. The other one, the term impossible, that's kind of subjective as well. So if you will, Mr. Chair, I will turn it over to Clay because he's kind of looked into this issue a bit more than I have.
Definitely. Clay, could you come to the microphone, please?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Clay Barker, Deputy General Counsel, Secretary of State. As Ms. Capal said, there's currently two statutes on the books that give the Secretary of State some authority to deal with unexpected situations. The first is the Secretary can extend the time to receive mail ballots. I believe there's a bill that's going to strike that power because as it's currently written, it's not limited in any way. The other statute, which had to do originally with this flood, is if it is impossible for the voters to vote in the normal way, the secretary can approve alternate ballot distribution. Neither has been used. We assume the alternate ballot distribution would be the county would call up and say, we want to do this to solve this particular problem. But the remedy for someone who asked for a mail ballot and there was a fire is to show up on election day. You may get a provisional ballot because the system will say you asked for a mail ballot and it was sent, but you can always show up on election day at a polling place and get a ballot. I know there'll be times when some unexpected disaster happens and it may just not be possible for someone to vote, but the system has some redundancy built into it, Senator.
Not seeing any further questions. Well, Senator Ware.
I do have I have some concerns. So the line, the end of the line in blue that Senator Fascudo was talking about, that means never, ever be able to adjust this? That's question one.
And Jason might be able to correct me if I am wrong, but if someone wanted to change it, would go through the same process we're doing right now, and it would be able to be changed.
And in addition, if I may.
Senator Ware?
Thank you. We have already today proposed cutting 5 days off of people's time to get a ballot in. This cuts another 3 days off. Over a week. Now, the thing is, it's easy to say for all of us sitting in here who live a fairly comfortable life that, oh, you just go run it down, or you just get a phone call and you take care of whatever the mistake was or the problem was. But there aren't, the number of people who don't have the means that we do, we are incredibly blessed in this room. The number of people who are not and don't have the kind of flexibility that we're assuming everyone does is a very, very large number of people. We're not talking about, you know, some tiny little fraction. And therefore, this absolutely becomes voter suppression. There is no way around it.
Thank you for turning my mic on. I want to say thank you for the comment. Because of the confusion on this bill at this time, we're going to hold this for perhaps a future hearing, and we'll schedule that hearing probably next week and make sure that we do get it right. We do have some concerns. I understand there's been raised, and we appreciate those concerns. So with that, I want to say thank you very much to the committee. You've done excellent work today, a lot of work today. And we appreciate all you've done. Yes, Senator Peterson. Oh, yes, we do. We need to do one more. Yes. This is the one you had to pass out. Hold on. Okay, we're going to work Senate Bill 94, requiring all voting systems for elections to be used individual voter verified paper ballots. Oh. I've had reconsideration. We've worked too hard today. I think we'll hold this and work this Monday, or the next day we get together on that. But we will not have no meeting tomorrow. I want to thank you again for everything you've done. And was you complaining about that?
Senator Reichman was.
Okay. Okay, so thank you very much. We are adjourned.